Welcome back to the show. 22 years before the death of George Floyd on May 25th in 2020 in Minneapolis, Amadou Diallo was tragically killed by 4 plainclothes New York City police officers who fired 41 shots at him. It literally were shots that rang out across New York City, across the state, and across the world. The officers claimed they had mistaken the 23-year-old West African immigrant for a rape suspect and fired in self-defense when he pulled out a black object that later turned out to be a wallet, but they thought was a handgun. Amadou Diallo's mother started the Amadou Diallo Foundation, which is a New York not-for-profit advocating for racial equity and promote education for students of African descent. And she continues to work hard on the ground. Joining us now to provide her point of view on the matter, I am joined by the mother of Amadou Diallo, and she's also the president and founder of the Amadou Diallo Foundation, Kadiatou Diallo. Ms. Diallo, an honor and a privilege to have you back here, and welcome first to the Social Justice Forums.
Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start off by saying this, that, I remember that day. It was 22 years ago, and I remember that day because as much as I don't want to date myself as a journalist, I was working right here at the very same TV station, and I remember what it felt like. I remember what it felt like as a journalist. I remember what it felt like as a person, and no clue as to what it would feel like for you. But when we look at the death of George Floyd, and we see how he violently died at the hands of police, and we're here now at the place where we're in the Derek Chauvin trial, it has to bring back certain memories for you. So talk to us about where you are today as you look at George Floyd's death, and then you look at the death of your own son, Amadou Diallo.
As I always say, when my son was gunned down on February 4th, 1999, my life changed forever and will never be the same. I came to America to fight for my child and for other victims, generations to being violated and brutalized for no fault of their own. That's when I found my voice to advocate and to fight for justice and stand for my son and speak on his behalf. Ever since then, I traveled this journey, and in between, after my child was murdered and he was denied justice, and then many other victims came along until we came to George Floyd, like your question here. So many victims along the way being killed by law enforcement. And that moment when my son was killed shook the world and raised the consciousness of humanity. George Floyd, when he was killed, my wound was reopened again, like always when other victims are killed in New York City, like Eric Garner, Sean Bell, Ramale Graham, Kimani, and all these victims, Mohammed Ba, whenever these incidents happen, I'm taken back again, even though I'm trying to heal, to work through the Amadou Diallo Foundation and build a legacy for my son, to empower young people and challenge the system to have positive changes. We are taken back each time when we lost young people through this system, and it's not fair. This time is so hard for the family. My heart goes out to them. I lived through my tragedy, and remember the case of Amadou supposed to be tried in New York City, but the change of venue took us to Albany, and I know those moments will be hard for the family of George Floyd. So again, my prayers are with them. And I spoke out when George Floyd was killed, and I said then, and I even said now, when George Floyd cried out for his mother, all mothers heard him. All Black mothers heard him. It's not fair. Why are we still here? That's my question.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be this way.
I want to talk to you a little bit about where you are right now, because after Amadou's death, you made up in your mind that you were going to come from Africa, you're going to live here in the States, and you're going to be a voice
Yes.
for your son in the wake of the injustice that occurred. Talk to us about that decision in coming from Africa and deciding to move here.
Thank you. It's so important for me to explain the sacrifice that I have made with my family. On February 4th, 1999, I was a businesswoman and I was in Africa dealing with big investment in mining sector, trying to work hard and develop the country, add to the economy in Guinea, engage people, villagers, to give them benefit of my project so that they can be shareholders of the company and build. I was envisioning building schools and hospitals. And then my child, as he crossed the ocean from Africa to come to the US, he had been living in many different countries and he spoke 5 languages. He graduated from the French International High School in Bangkok. And then right after that, he went to Singapore and he was interested in computer science literacy. So his dream was to come to the US, work hard and pay his way to college and achieve his education. When he was killed, he was not only robbed his life, but he was robbed his identity because he was portrayed in the media as the West African immigrant who was selling on the street vendor. Amadou had a mission. He was a dreamer. He wanted to achieve his dream. So nothing else counted for me. I had to leave everything behind and I came to America. That was the reason for me to sacrifice this mission of mine, to take the mission of the Amadou Diallo Foundation, because my son was denied his dream. He was robbed his life. He deserved to realize his dream and he was robbed his life. And he also, his dream was cut short. So I said, even if I go back to Africa, I will never be the same anymore. I want to fight to join other families also whom I met during my advocacy in New York City at the National Action Network. I met families who had pictures of their children on their chest to show that before Amadou, yes, their children too were victims. In fact, one of the mother I met was the mother of Patrick Bailey, who was killed by one of the officers who killed Amadou. So I said, wait a minute, this is not right. We need to change this. And my mission began then. My son was a pilgrim, was a dreamer, was a fighter, was someone who was in New York City for almost 2.5 years, never been in a fight, never have any trouble with the law. If that innocent person can be portrayed and really brutalized and killed that way, something was wrong. And yet, at that time, we don't have social media. So all we have is the traditional media. This case was one of the cases that really galvanized people in New York City, around the nation, around the world to ask.
And I often tell people, I said, before there was George Floyd, there was Amadou Diallo. And I remember how much the media coverage was. I remember how volatile the environment was. I remember when the trial was moved and we thought that it would be here in New York City, and it ends up subsequently being moved to Albany. And then most of all, what I think all of us remember is the simple miscarriage of justice that happened on behalf of your son.
Yes.
Police found innocent, and pretty much when it came to Amadou, that was it.
Yes.
Trial was over, and that was it. Yes. But for you, it wasn't it. It was just beginning, and then you start now with the Amadou Diallo Foundation. Talk to us a little bit about the Amadou Diallo Foundation, because as I heard you speak in the last, and after the last question, it seems as though a part of your mission is also to restore his name.
Yes.
And to restore his name, because for most of us, and even us in media, we looked at him as, yes, the West African immigrant, somebody who came from West Africa. But as you pointed out so eloquently, this was a young man that had degrees, that had education, that had intellect, but most of all, also had promise.
Yes. The Amadou Diallo Foundation is about the Amadou's promise to realize his dream by helping other young people get college education, get the scholarship, so that they can achieve their educational goal through Amadou's legacy. Amadou was this young man who, at the age of 21, can you imagine, he has traveled to many different countries. At that age, he was born in Liberia. We are originally from Guinea, and he grew up in Liberia, Togo, then Thailand, Singapore, and Japan. So he was a global citizen, I have to say. And when he got to New York, he was not, some people describe him as someone from the village whose family was struggling. If that was his story, that's fine too. But it wasn't his story. Amadou came leaving his privilege behind and coming to work hard and start a new life on his own, no matter what, independently, from asking help from his family. I want people to think about the immigrant story. We all know President Barack Obama, his father was a young student from Kenya. He came to America for his education and met this young woman and had Barack Obama. He became the president. So no one knows if my son was alive today. I cannot even imagine. I know he would be accomplished, because at the time of his death, he called me the last time. He said he has saved $9,000 and he was ready to enroll in college. So this was his dream and his promise, but it was denied. It was taken away. It wasn't about natural cause. Someone caused this thing. These officers decided when he saw this Black man standing in the vestibule that he must be nothing but a normal person who was going home in his own home. So it was a system brutalizing people in different levels. It depends on the zip code where you live. But my mission really is about the Amadou Diallo Foundation. Before even developing the programs of the scholarship and forums that we are doing every time. And I have to say, even one retired police detective served on our board, Graham Weatherspoon. So we want to contribute to bring dialogue, raise awareness around this police brutality. We advocate for racial equity on our mission, and also promote education for young people of African descent. I have also published a memoir titled "My Heart Will Cross This Ocean," because this will give a little bit of, will give in a larger scope our origin, because I started the story from the village where my father was sent to school to know the Amadou was named after his grandfather, my father. So I decided to give him back his story through the Amadou Diallo Foundation, and also is also recently we have been fortunate to be part of a series of cases on Netflix titled Trial by Media. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but it's history, because in that piece you have the trial, you have the case showcase on the film, and it was released last year in May. It's still on Netflix. If they want to see it, they can. They are welcome to see it. I think it's good to learn about history, because these recent cases, you have social media, so people are quickly learning about everything. But that time, our time, it was non-existent. And but if
Yeah.
today, I have to say, young people connect to the Amadou Diallo Foundation, and I'm so blessed and so grateful that young people are still talking about Amadou and learning about Amadou and connecting through the Amadou Diallo Foundation.
Talk to me about your foundation, and then, but also more particularly yourself. I mean, you say right now that you have a retired detective who serves on the board, but given the fact that your son has died at the hands of police, how hard has it been for you, and how hard has it been for your family to have that relationship, to be able to work with them, given the fact that these were the direct culprits as the ones who took your son's life?
Yes, I have to say, if you believe that you want to change something, you have to go to the source. And my board member, who is a retired detective, told me during all his career, he never used his gun. And he stopped people that, were doing suspicious things. He said if the system want to change, it's possible, because he experienced throughout his career, he never used his gun on someone. So I was curious, and I was really drawn to the other side of the story, because you can't put everything, all the police people in one bag to the contracts at the same time, where we say you cannot just put everyone in the bag of suspicious, saying people are suspicious, coming after everyone and stopping people for no reason. The same way we're advocating for that, that's the same way we have to understand that the other side too. Some other police officers may want to have changes. They want to contribute to changes that we are calling for. However, in my own appreciation and my own opinion, the whole system needs to be challenged. The whole system is not working, because every time you have these shooting cases, you always say, this time we will pass laws, we will change the situation, but then it's look like a bandage. It's not gonna work. You have to change the whole system. The whole system needs to be challenged.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Diallo. I want to do this. I want to be able to take a break, continue our conversation with Kadiatou Diallo, the mother of Amadou Diallo, as we continue here on the Social Justice Forums.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting
to the new reality.
Reporting from Bronx,
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
And welcome back to the Social Justice Forums. We're glad to have our very special guest, Kadiatou Diallo, the mother of Amadou Diallo, the one who was slain here in the borough of the Bronx by New York City police officers. In the end, officers acquitted, and the quest for justice continues. In the last segment, you talked a little bit about police reforms and police accountability. We know right now that there have been some new laws and some new reforms that are out there that have changed. We can see an officer's record to be able to see what their history is, but still, for a lot of people, that's still not satisfactory. So talk to me about what you see right now with some of the reforms that have been made, and are you satisfied?
No, we are not satisfied as communities because in New York City, in fact, I'm part of victims of police brutality families. We all agree that changes has been had, but it's not enough. Like for instance, giving the public access to officers' record. I was reading, they said it's just limited to those who are convicted of a crime. But I think the public are entitled to know the complete record of all the officers. If they have prior complaints, whatever is in the record, that is the same way they scrutinize victims whenever they stab someone or they kill someone, immediately you would see the whole record open. I think that the police who is also working for the communities need to be scrutinized. They need to be transparent. No one is going to take anything against them, but the public is entitled to see the whole records. That's where I am. I think that the family will agree with me. You can't release just part of it and say this is it. You have to release everything. The public are entitled to see the whole history of officers who are involved in even if it is not at the level of a crime. You need to know. The public need to know. Let's just be transparent and then work together. And also about the budget, I'm in support of the families of Shahid Vasad and Mohammed Ba and other families who are calling for reallocating some of the funds to have special trained people to deal with mental challenge citizens, which when you call 911, we know we have many victims in recent years that are killed because the police responded and they don't know how to handle those matters. So I think people should not just cry and say, oh, now the community are against the police, anti-police, they're calling to defund the police. No, it's about working together and passing measures that can help the police do better jobs for the community because they are working for the communities.
All right. Police community relations have always been strained. And I remember back when Amadou was killed, what that did in terms of putting a violent strain between particularly communities of color and then police. Talk to me about your foundation, and have you been able to bridge that gap? Because since then, we know a lot is taking place, a lot has transpired, you called a lot of names, but have you felt like the foundation has helped to bridge that gap some?
Well, the Amadou Diallo Foundation mission is to, again, advocate for racial equity and raise awareness around police brutality. But we wish to be in a more active role to bridge that gap. So again, we will be sending proposals because the foundation has been established and have integrity, have a reputation of working and raising awareness. The former mayor New York City, David Dinkins, was the chair of the foundation. Our intention and our goal is to really continue to improve police and community relations, but it's difficult to work in the politic light because politicians are not easy to work with, but we will not give up. My son's legacy deserves to be one of the players in that mission.
One of the things that happens when we see these shootings, when we see deaths in community, the question comes up about community and cultural competency, and the fact that sometimes many of these officers don't have a cultural competency to understand, and that's simply because they don't live in the neighborhood requirement. And one of the things that the police union says is that New York is unaffordable. And because New York is unaffordable, police officers have to find someplace else to live. And sometimes it's outside of New York City. But that being said, causes some challenge when it deals with having to be able to intersect with the community, because sometimes an officer's first intersection is literally when they come into the community to come to work. Talk to us about how you feel about that residency requirement and what you think we can do to better have cultural competency amongst law enforcement.
When it comes to cultural clash between law enforcement and community, I think the hypocrisy will be like, we don't know them. And when we're there, we're afraid. How can you, when you have prejudice in your heart, in your mind, you're thinking the area you're working is a dangerous place because the people don't look like you. You are not fit to do that job. If you see people, you come to like outsiders from living in Long Island or other places coming down to in the Bronx and say they're afraid, saying that this is a dangerous place, then something is wrong. I think no matter what color of the cop, their color of the skin, or the place they're coming from, if they have prejudice, if they don't treat people like human beings, then we'll continue to see these problems. But if living in the neighborhood will help, fine. Let's try to recruit people from that neighborhood then. Let's try to train people then, because in the end, all people are equal. All people are human beings. If you treat someone the way you want to be treated, then you have harmony. Sometimes, you know, working with churches, working with mosques, reaching out to communities will have better outcome than just policing them. This is my view in that. I think that we have so much more to do, but it's going to come from community engagements, building communities.
And lastly, before we go, tell us how we can be connected to the Amadou Diallo Foundation for the public who wants to still be connected to the work that you're doing and the community that you're serving.
Thank you so much. We are working on right now remotely. So the best way to connect with us is through the foundation website, AmadouDiallo.org, AMADOU. DIALLO.org. And we welcome for anyone who want to partner with us or support us or even need our help in any way. Please do connect with us.
Mrs. Diallo, it has been an honor and a privilege to have you here with us here on the Social Justice Forums, taking the time to be with us. Thank you again for your time, and certainly continued wishes for the work that you're doing with the Amadou Diallo Foundation. Certainly, he has not departed from my heart, and I know that is true for many of us who live here in New York City. Thanks much.
Thank you. The Bronx is in my heart always. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Mrs. Kadiatou Diallo. Listen, we're taking a quick break. We'll be back with more of the Social Justice Forums right after this.